Earlier this year, tattoo artist Romeo Lacoste sued Daniel Keemstar of Drama Alert over allegations Keem made about Romeo's interactions with young fans. Romeo lost that lawsuit handily, and now Keemstar's going for the throat. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And today we're talking about Keemstar's lawsuit against Romeo Lacoste. Keemstar has won on his anti-SLAPP motion. An anti-SLAPP is recognizing that a lawsuit is what's called a SLAPP suit, a strategic lawsuit against public participation. SLAPP, right? It's an acronym. And that is saying basically that the lawsuit was brought not to actually compensate the plaintiff for damage that was done, but it's to silence the First Amendment rights of the defendant. So in this case, Keemstar is saying that he had a right to say what was said about Romeo Lacoste's interactions online, and the basic thrust of the assertion of that right is that what he said was true. Now, what happened after that is Romeo hired an attorney, and they went ahead and just admitted to it all being true in all of their documents, which is why they lost and lost handily. But what happens next? Does Keemstar just win the suit? Well, yes, but now Keemstar is also allowed to file a motion to recover his attorney's fees from Romeo Lacoste. Let's take a look at the law, and then let's take a brief look at a couple sections of the filing, and we'll see how much he's asking for and all of that stuff, and if he's entitled to it. Okay, so this is the law. It's actually California Code of Civil Procedure 425.16, and the relevant section is C1. Except as provided in paragraph 2, in any action subject to subdivision B, a prevailing defendant on a special motion to strike shall be entitled to recover his or her attorney's fees and costs. If the court finds that a special motion to strike is frivolous or is solely intended to cause unnecessary delay, the court shall award costs and reasonable attorney's fees to a plaintiff prevailing on the motion pursuant to section 128.5. Okay, the long and short of that legalese is that if the defendant wins, the defendant gets his fees. Now, it says his or her attorney's fees, but you should always add in reasonable to this, because you don't get just whatever you ask for. What you ask for has to be reasonable under the circumstances, and it's within the court's discretion to award those reasonable fees and to determine what is or isn't reasonable. This is why you need to actually file a motion for it, and you need to support that motion with evidence and testimony about why the fees are what they are. Again, we're going to take a quick peek at what Keemstar filed in just a second, but it's important to know that you don't automatically get the fees you ask for, and the fee award can actually vary pretty greatly between cases, even if those cases have on their face similar factual scenarios, because the award of the fees is based on a whole lot of things, partly based on how much the attorneys actually charge. Second, it's based on what is the prevailing rate of the attorney's fees in that area for attorneys of similar experience and qualification. What are the attorneys' experience and qualification? Did they get the results they were after? And then finally, is there a significant amount of risk involved in the lawsuit that can be a contributing factor as well? In this particular lawsuit, Keemstar was sued for $3.5 million, which makes it a pretty big deal, something that he would have to definitely defend against. Otherwise, he would risk significant penalty. So let's take a look at the filing and see what he's asking for, what costs have been racked up, and then talk about what he may recover. All right, so this is the motion itself. And then there's a memorandum of law attached to the motion. The motion says the defendant, Daniel Keemstar, will and hereby does move this court for an order awarding Keem his attorney's fees in the amount of $151,785 and costs in the amount of $8,188.60. Keem makes this motion pursuant to Section 425.16C of the California Code of Civil Procedure. The court's June 23rd, 2020 order granting Keem's anti-SLAPP motion to strike, and the judgment entered on July 13th. So this is the motion. Let's take a quick peek at the memorandum and grab some points from it. Plaintiff Nico Romeo Lacoste sued defendant Daniel Keem for over $3.5 million in damages after Keem truthfully publicized plaintiff's conversations with people. YouTube algorithm. Plaintiff failed to allege how any aspect of Mr. Keem's reporting was false in any way or were not opinions. And what it doesn't say here, but what it does say in the judgment is that, in fact, the plaintiff admitted to these things. He actually admitted to the aspects of, or the allegations that Keem was accusing him of. California's anti-SLAPP statute mandates the recovery of reasonable attorney's fees to defendants like Mr. Keem, who prevailed in such SLAPP suits. Mr. Keem's counsel spent considerable time on his successful defense with attorney's fees of $151,785 and costs of $8,188.60. The figure represents the lodestar arising from the hours worked by the lawyers and a paralegal in preparing and finalizing successful anti-SLAPP motion in this case. The reply brief in support of the motion to strike, blah, 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 blah. So basically, they've gone through and done what's called a lodestar analysis, and that's where you take the amount of time that was spent by each person involved, and you multiply it out by their billable hourly rate. In this case, the billable hourly rates are pretty high. In fact, we have them right here, and this is pretty typical of Los Angeles attorneys. The attorneys for Keemstar are Eric George, Kim Zeldin, Eric Westland, and then the paralegal is Ann Kim. And you can see their hourly rates are $900, $600, $450, and $150 respectively. As a brief side note, because people often get confused about how this works out, these attorneys do not get paid this rate. This is what they charge, but a big portion of that hourly rate does go back to the law firm to cover costs, to cover advertising, to cover materials and other personnel and stuff like that. So this is what the attorney costs to the client, but is not what the attorney is getting paid typically. Now, those are their standard hourly rates. However, they did potentially go ahead and discount their rates. Discounted rates were provided to Mr. Keem for this matter for Ms. Zeldin, Mr. Westland, and Ms. Kim. Their standard hourly rates and the rates that Brown George Ross charges to its clients without a discount are higher, $650, $540, and $300 respectively for these lower three numbers. So once you've done that, you then go through your billing invoices and you remove everything that was duplicated or frivolous or unnecessary, and that is how you come up with your lodestar analysis overall. Is you have to make reasonable determinations about what work maybe wasn't necessary to go ahead and take care of the case and remove that for the court. And they go ahead and talk about the process and all of this, but it would take a long time to read through all of that, and it's not really beneficial. What is the outcome in this case? What is Keemstar going to get? Well, Keemstar is mandated an award for his attorney's fees. He shall get them from the court, whatever that be. So Keemstar will get whatever the court determines is a reasonable amount of attorney's fees awarded to him. Then, of course, Romeo may not want to pay that, and then Keemstar would have to initiate a judgment collection action against Romeo to actually get the fees from him. And that's a whole separate matter. But as for getting the award, Keemstar will get awarded something between $0 and approximately $160,000. What will the court determine is reasonable in this action? It's pretty hard to say. The hourly rates are a little bit high. It's not that they're outlandish for the LA area, and certainly there are decisions on the books supporting such rates. Romeo and Keemstar are both relatively public. Romeo is a well-resourced individual with his own business. Keemstar is a public person, and the lawsuit was meant to publicly happen, right? You don't sue a media personality without some expectation that the lawsuit is going to be fought in public. It's fought in federal court as opposed to state court, mostly because Keemstar is not in California. And so Keemstar has significant extra costs going into having to hire representation across the country from where he is. So there's a whole lot going into this. The questions will be determined based on what Romeo's lawyers file to oppose the fee proposal brought by Keemstar, and then how that will play out in court. If it goes the way it's been going, Romeo's lawyers will probably suggest that Keemstar's lawyers didn't charge enough and offer to pay more, because that's how Romeo's year is going right now and how his counsel has been acting so far. But I think it's entirely possible that the entire award is given to Keemstar, the entire amount of approximately $160,000 that he's asking for. But we also, you should prepare for the court to give a haircut on whatever award you're asking, because they like to give a little bit of deference sometimes to the other party, just to, in the interest of fairness, and also in exercising their discretion on a fee award. It makes it a little bit harder to appeal that award. So I would not be surprised to see something like a 20 or even 30% cut in the amount of fees requested. So we'd see a reduction of, about $30,000 to $45,000 coming off of this. I don't think that would be a very big surprise. It would still be a large award for Keemstar to recover his costs, but I would not be surprised to see at least some cut coming from the court on the attorney's fees. That's just how courts tend to deal with these things. So we'll see. Of course, I will let you know if you're interested in following this and other cases in the YouTube space or entertainment space. We cover all sorts of cases on the channel. Please go ahead, hit like and subscribe and all of that stuff. And we'll see you next time. Hope you found this informative. Have a good day. Peace. Peace.